Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
So I'm gonna tell you about the most ridiculous neighbor drama I've ever been part of. This happened about 3 years ago when I finally saved up enough money to buy my first house. I had been renting apartments for years, dealing with thin walls and upstairs neighbors who apparently tap danced at midnight. When I found this little place in what seemed like a quiet neighborhood, I thought I'd hit the jackpot. The house was nothing fancy, just a small 2-bedroom with a decent yard. I had big plans for that yard too. I wanted to plant some vegetables, maybe get a little herb garden going. I work in IT, so I spend most of my day staring at screens. Having a place to get outside and work with my hands felt like exactly what I needed. The first few weeks were perfect. I met some of the neighbors, everyone seemed friendly enough. There was an older couple on one side who kept their lawn pristine and always waved when they saw me. On the other side was a single mom with 2 kids who were loud but polite. Everything was going great. Then I met my back neighbor. This guy was something else. Picture the most stereotypical suburbanite you can imagine, then dial it up to 11. He owned not 1 but 2 grills, constantly walked around shirtless showing off his beer guts, and I swear, he had a Coors Light permanently attached to his hand. Even at 10 in the morning, there he was in his driveway, cracking open a cold one like it was 5 o'clock somewhere. But the worst part wasn't his drinking habits or his fashion choices, it was his dog. Don't get me wrong, the dog was actually pretty cool. Big golden retriever, friendly as could be, the kind of dog that would probably lick a burglar to death instead of barking at them. The problem was that this dog had apparently decided my lawn was his personal bathroom. Not just any part of my lawn either. This dog had the audacity to walk right to the dead center of my yard, squat down, and leave me the most disgusting present you could imagine. Every single day. Like clockwork. At first I figured maybe the neighbor just didn't realize what was happening. I'm not a confrontational person by nature, so I waited until I saw him outside one day and walked over to have a friendly chat. I introduced myself as his new back neighbor and politely asked if he could help me with something. When he asked what I needed, I explained that his dog had been using my lawn as a bathroom pretty regularly. I wondered if maybe he could keep the dog on a leash or at least clean up after it when it happened. This guy looked at me like I had just asked him to donate a kidney. He was wearing this ridiculous tank top that said Weekend Warrior and had barbecue sauce stains on it. He told me it was all nature and that I didn't own the earth. I pointed out that I did actually own that specific patch of earth, since that's how property ownership works. He said dogs had been pooping for thousands of years and it was natural fertilizer. I suggested that maybe it could be natural fertilizer for his yard instead of mine. He looked annoyed and said he wasn't going to micromanage where his dog took a dump. He told me to deal with it. That's when I knew I wasn't dealing with a reasonable person. I tried the usual solutions first. I patched up the gaps in the fence, thinking maybe the dog was just finding easy access points. Didn't work. I installed one of those motion-activated sprinklers, thinking it would scare the dog away. The first time it went off, I was actually hopeful. But when I looked out the window the next morning, there was a fresh pile right next to where the sprinkler had triggered. I even tried some citrus deterrent I found online. Apparently dogs hate the smell of orange peels. I scattered them all over the area where the dog usually went. The next day the orange peels were still there, but so was a new pile of dog mess, right on top of them. The neighbor actually laughed when he saw my sprinkler setup. He said it was a nice try, but that Duke was built different. That's when I decided I was built different too. I went to Home Depot and bought a 5-gallon bucket. I lined it with a heavy-duty trash bag and kept it in my garage. Every time I found a fresh present in my yard, I'd scoop it up and add it to my collection. After about 2 weeks, I had accumulated quite the stash. I added just a little water to make it more, shall we say, spreadable. One Saturday morning, I saw the neighbor leaving his truck. Perfect timing. I grabbed my bucket and took a walk around his property line. I very carefully painted the border of his yard with my special mixture. I paid extra attention to the area around his deck and his precious fire pit where he liked to hold his loud weekend barbecues. A few hours later, I was sitting on my porch with a cup of coffee when I heard him come home. I watched him get out of his truck and immediately start sniffing the air with this confused look on his face. He asked what the hell that smell was. I told him it smelled like nature, but I wasn't done yet. Our neighborhood has one of those Facebook groups where people post about lost cats and complain about garbage pickup schedules. I decided to have a little fun with it. I started posting these overly polite lost dog poop announcements every time I found a fresh deposit in my yard. Found, steaming hot dog present near my mailbox. If this belongs to you, please collect your property before it fossilizes. Thanks. Lost. Medium-sized dog waste. Appears to be from a large breed. Found in the middle of my lawn right where I was planning to plant tomatoes. Owner, please claim as soon as possible. The post started getting likes and comments from other neighbors. Apparently, I wasn't the only one dealing with this problem. Then I had what I considered to be my stroke of genius. I went to the craft store and bought popsicle sticks, toothpicks, glitter, and googly eyes. I made these tiny little signs and stuck them all over my lawn wherever I found dog mess. But these weren't just regular signs. I wrote them in haiku form. Dear Duke the Pooper, this is not your golden throne. My grass feels betrayed. Morning gift received. I did not ask for this present. Please shop elsewhere. Poop fairy strikes again, leaving treasures in my yard. Magic is not real. I made dozens of them. My lawn looked like some kind of bizarre art installation. The googly eyes made them even more ridiculous. The neighbor was not amused. He actually stormed over to my house one evening. He demanded to know if I was trying to make him look bad. I told him I didn't need to try. He said those stupid signs were embarrassing. I asked him if he knew what was embarrassing and then told him it was having to dodge dog crap every time I wanted to walk in my own yard. He said it was just dog poop and not that big a deal. I asked him why he was so upset about me drawing attention to it then. That seemed to stump him. He stormed off muttering something about crazy neighbors. The Facebook posts and the lawn signs had done their job though. Other neighbors started commenting on my posts, sharing their own stories about the same dog leaving presents in their yards. Apparently, this had been going on for months and everyone had just been dealing with it quietly. The older couple next door came over to thank me for finally saying something. The single mom mentioned that her kids couldn't play in their front yard anymore because of the mess. Even some neighbors I'd never met before started sharing their own stories. The social pressure finally got to him. Within a week, I noticed construction happening in his backyard. He was building a proper fenced-in dog run. A few days later, I saw him walking the dog on an actual leash for the first time since I'd moved in. The daily deposits in my yard stopped immediately. I kept making the little haiku signs though. They'd become sort of a neighborhood joke. People would stop by just to read the new ones. I even started getting requests from other neighbors who wanted me to make signs for their own yards. The whole thing became this weird, bonding experience for the neighborhood. We started a group chat about it, sharing photos of the signs and coming up with new haiku ideas. Even after the problem was solved, it gave us all something to laugh about. The neighbor pretty much avoids eye contact with me now, but his dog is properly contained, and my lawn is finally poop-free. I was able to plant that vegetable garden I've been dreaming about, and my tomatoes turned out amazing. 5 years ago, my cousin got stationed at the local Air Force base and decided to move in with me and my family. He was always the type who loved shopping around for good deals, and he kept telling us how much cheaper everything was in our area compared to where he was stationed before. At the time, I was working on renovating my house, doing small projects here and there. My cousin, being handy with electrical work from his military training, was helping me out whenever he had free time. We both noticed how the prices of construction materials were starting to climb, and my cousin had this idea that we should stock up on supplies before they got too expensive. One morning, my cousin came to me with his phone in hand, showing me a listing he found online. Some guy was selling bundles of 12-2 copper wire, and my cousin wanted to buy more than 15 bundles. The price was decent, and we figured it would save us money in the long run since copper prices were going crazy. My cousin asked if I wanted to drive down with him about an hour away to pick up the wire. He showed me the listing and said the guy could meet us that afternoon. The price was way better than what we'd pay at the hardware store, so I agreed to go with him. So we loaded up my truck and drove about an hour to meet the seller. The whole drive down, my cousin was excited about the deal and talking about all the electrical work we could get done with that much wire. We were about halfway there when my cousin's phone buzzed with a text message. My cousin looked at his phone and got really angry. He told me the seller had just texted him saying the deal was off because someone else was paying top dollar for the wire. I could see my cousin getting more upset when he read the message out loud. Here we were, already committed to driving an hour each way, and this seller was backing out because someone offered him more money. It wasn't even like we were lowballing him. We agreed to his asking price. I told my cousin that it was really messed up since we had already driven halfway there. My cousin said he hated people who did this, and that a deal should be a deal. We turned around and drove back home, but my cousin was still fuming about the whole situation. He asked me to stop at a convenience store so he could grab a couple of beers. I could tell he was really bummed out about the whole thing, not just because of the money, but because he felt like the guy had disrespected him. When we sat in the parking lot, my cousin was shaking his head and muttering about how people have no integrity anymore. That's when I got an idea. I asked him what if we made the seller drive up an hour to waste his time just like he did to us. My cousin wanted to know what I meant. I explained that I was thinking about this Home Depot, where I met up with someone for another online purchase a while back. I suggested texting the seller, pretending to be a different buyer, and offering him close to full price. My cousin looked at me and started grinning. He was definitely interested in getting some payback and told me it was actually brilliant. So I pulled out my phone and sent the seller a message from my number, acting like I was a new buyer who had seen his listing. I offered him almost full price for the wire, just a little less than what this mysterious top dollar buyer supposedly offered. The guy responded within seconds. He was super excited and kept texting back immediately every time I sent a message. I could tell he was really eager to make this sale happen. He said yes to my price and asked when we could meet. I suggested meeting in an hour at the Home Depot off the main highway. The seller was thrilled and said he would head there right away. He mentioned he would be in a white pickup truck and that he was loading up the wire. My cousin was laughing when he watched me text back and forth with this guy. We drove home and waited about an hour. Then I sent one final message asking where he was since I was at Home Depot. The seller replied that he was there too and was parked near the front entrance. That's when I blocked his number. My cousin was cracking up watching me do it. About 30 minutes later, my cousin's phone started ringing. It was the original seller calling him. The seller asked if my cousin was still interested in the wire because the other buyer never showed up. My cousin told him that he might be interested, but after what happened earlier, he was only willing to pay a bit less than what we originally agreed on. The seller said that was fine and that he just wanted to get rid of the wire. He asked if he could bring it to us, and my cousin gave him our address. An hour later, the seller showed up at our house with his truck full of wire bundles. He looked tired and frustrated when he unloaded everything. My cousin paid him the reduced price, and the guy left without saying much. After he drove away, my cousin was in a much better mood. He got his wire at an even better price than originally planned, and we both felt like the seller learned what it felt like to have his time wasted by someone who didn't follow through on a deal. My cousin said he felt so much better and that the guy got exactly what he deserved. I agreed and said that maybe next time he would think twice before backing out on someone who was already driving to meet him. We spent the rest of the evening organizing all the wire in my garage, and my cousin was back to his usual cheerful self. My daughter is 8 years old and has the most beautiful curly hair you've ever seen. It's thick, bouncy, and reaches down to her waist. She's always been proud of it, and honestly, so have I. We spend time together every morning brushing it and styling it with special products that work with her curl pattern. The whole thing started because my daughter had been saving up her allowance for months to buy this really pretty hair tie she saw at the mall. It wasn't just any hair tie. It was handmade with little pearls and silk flowers. Cost her $25, which is a lot for a kid. She was so excited when she finally had enough money, and she wore it every day to school. Last Tuesday, I was picking her up from school like always. I was standing by the fence waiting for the bell to ring when I noticed this woman I'd never seen before. She was tall, probably in her 40s, with short blonde hair and wearing workout clothes. She was talking really loudly on her phone about some problem with her son's teacher. When the kids came out, my daughter ran up to me like she always does, but today she looked upset. Her hair tie was gone and her hair was all messy. I asked her what happened to her hair tie. She told me that this boy in her class wanted it, and when she said no, his mom said she was being selfish. That's when the woman from the fence walked over with her son. The kid was maybe 7 or 8 and he was holding my daughter's hair tie. The woman asked if my daughter was mine. I said yes and asked why she wanted to know. She told me that my daughter was being very selfish with her hair accessories. She said her son really liked the hair tie and my daughter wouldn't share it. The woman was talking about my daughter's personal belongings like they were communal property. I told her I was sorry but that it was my daughter's hair tie and she had saved up her own money to buy it. She said my daughter didn't need such an expensive hair tie anyway. She said kids should learn to share and that her son had been wanting something like this for his sister. I explained that I understood, but the hair tie belonged to my daughter who had worked hard to save up for it. The woman rolled her eyes and made this huffing sound like I was being completely unreasonable. She said fine if my daughter was going to be like that about it. Before I could process what was happening, she reached into her purse and pulled out a pair of scissors. In one quick motion, she grabbed a huge chunk of my daughter's hair and cut it off. Just like that. About 6 inches of beautiful curls fell to the ground. My daughter started crying immediately. The woman handed the hair tie to her son and started walking away like nothing had happened. I asked her what she had just done. She said she had solved the problem and that now nobody gets the hair tie in their hair. Something inside me just snapped. This woman had just assaulted my child over a hair accessory. I've never been a violent person, but seeing my daughter's face and her beautiful hair on the ground had triggered something deep in me. Without thinking, I stepped forward and punched her square in the face. She stumbled backward and fell down holding her nose. Her son started crying too now. She yelled that I couldn't hit her and that she was calling the police. I told her to go ahead and call them because she had just assaulted my daughter with scissors. By now, other parents and teachers had noticed the commotion. Mrs. Rodriguez, my daughter's teacher, came running over. Mrs. Rodriguez asked what was going on. Karen told her that I was a crazy woman who had punched her in the face. Mrs. Rodriguez asked why there was hair all over the ground and why my daughter looked like someone had cut her hair. The principal came out too and soon there was a whole crowd. Karen was still on the ground and her nose was bleeding a little. She kept demanding that someone call the police, so finally someone did. When the officers arrived, they talked to all the witnesses. Multiple parents and teachers had seen Karen cut my daughter's hair. The principal had to review the security footage from the cameras near the school entrance. But one officer told Karen that she needed to come with them. He explained that cutting someone's hair without permission was considered assault, especially when it was a child. Karen protested that I had hit her and pointed to her face. The officer said that appeared to be self-defense after she had assaulted my daughter with scissors. Karen insisted that she was just trying to solve a problem and that my daughter was being selfish. The officer looked at her like she was insane. He told her that cutting a child's hair with scissors over a hair tie wasn't problem solving, it was assault. They ended up arresting Karen right there in front of everyone. Her son was crying and had to be picked up by his father. The whole thing was a mess. My daughter was still crying about her hair. We went straight to our salon, and the stylist had to cut it much shorter to even it out. She went from having hair down to her waist to having a bob that barely touched her shoulders. The next day, Karen's husband called me. He was apologetic and said his wife had been having some mental health issues lately. He offered to pay for the salon visit and replace the hair tie. I appreciated the gesture but told him his wife needed professional help. We ended up pressing charges. Karen was charged with assault and had to do community service. She also had to pay for my daughter's haircut and replaced the hair tie. My daughter's hair is growing back now, and she actually likes her shorter style. She says it's easier to manage for soccer practice, but I still can't believe someone would do something so crazy over a $25 hair tie. I work as a research scientist at this biotech company for about 8 years now. It's one of those places where everyone knows everyone, and most of us get along pretty well. The building has multiple labs, each working on different projects, so you end up interacting with people from other departments fairly regularly. I'm usually pretty laid back and try to avoid drama, but last week something happened that still has me questioning if I handled it right. I drink a lot of coffee. I probably go through 4 or 5 cups a day, especially during busy periods when we're rushing to meet deadlines. Last Tuesday was one of those days. We were in the middle of a big project with a tight timeline, and I've been pulling long hours all week. By 3 p.m. I was running on fumes and desperately needed my afternoon caffeine fix. During my break, I walked over to the coffee shop across the street and got my usual, a large iced coffee with extra espresso shots. I was already mentally preparing myself to dive back into the data analysis I've been working on all morning. The building where our lab is located is pretty old, and it has this heavy glass door at the front entrance that can be tricky to open when your hands are full. When I was walking back into the building balancing my coffee and trying to badge in with my key card, disaster struck. The plastic lid on my coffee cup wasn't secured properly, and when I pulled the door open, the whole thing popped off. The entire contents of my large iced coffee went everywhere, all over the floor, splashing against the glass door, creating this massive puddle right in the main entrance. I stood there for a second, staring at the mess, and just let out a frustrated sigh followed by a quiet curse under my breath. I really needed that caffeine, and now I was going to have to clean up this disaster instead of getting back to work. I immediately started walking toward the men's bathroom down the hall to grab some paper towels. At the same time, my friend from the lab was walking in behind me. She's this really sweet girl who started working with us about 2 years ago, fresh out of graduate school. She's always been super helpful and considerate, so when she saw what happened, she immediately darted off in the opposite direction to grab paper towels from the women's bathroom. But before either of us could even make it to the bathrooms, this older woman from one of the other labs started yelling at me from down the hallway. I knew her by name. Let's call her Karen, because she'd been working in the building for probably 15 years or more. She was in her mid-50s and had this reputation for being pretty difficult to work with. People would often complain about her attitude in the break room, but I'd never had any direct issues with her before. Karen was clearly on her way out for the evening, probably heading to the parking garage when she saw the spill. Instead of just walking around it or offering to help, she immediately started yelling in this really condescending tone that I needed to clean up the mess right away. She was shouting this from way down the hallway, past all the private offices where people were still working. I could hear her voice echoing off the walls, and I'm sure everyone in those offices could hear her too. It was embarrassing. I kind of raised my eyebrow at her tone but kept walking toward the bathroom. I figured it was obvious what I was doing. Where else would I be going to get cleaning supplies? But apparently that wasn't good enough for her. When she got closer to the doorway and saw that I was still walking away, she got even louder and more demanding. She yelled at me to come back and clean up the spill immediately. That's when I finally snapped. I turned around and yelled back at her, asking what exactly she expected me to clean it with. I sarcastically asked if she wanted me to plop down and sit on the spill, since I was obviously going to get paper towels to clean it properly. What did she expect me to do, clean up liquid with my bare hands? It was such an obvious situation. Of course I was going to clean it up, and of course I needed to get something to clean it with first. She started lecturing me about how I better clean it up, but I was done with her attitude. I cut her off and loudly said goodbye to her with this exaggerated sing-song tone and gave her a dramatic hand wave. It was petty and childish, but I was so frustrated with her condescending behavior that I just wanted her to go away. She finally left, probably more annoyed than before, but at least she was gone. That's when my friend came back from the women's bathroom with a huge stack of paper towels. My friend asked what Karen's problem was, clearly having heard at least part of the shouting match. When I told her about the whole exchange, she started laughing and said it was completely wild behavior on Karen's part. She helped me clean up the mess, which took about 2 minutes, and then we both went back to work. But for the rest of the day, I kept thinking about what had happened. Part of me felt embarrassed that I'd snapped at an older colleague like that, especially with the dramatic goodbye. It felt pretty immature, even though I was angry. On the other hand, her behavior was completely out of line. She was treating me like a child who couldn't be trusted to clean up after himself. The next day, I ran into a few other people from different labs who had apparently heard about the incident. Most of them sided with me, saying that Karen has always been difficult and that she was completely out of line. One guy told me that she'd done something similar to him a few months ago when he accidentally dropped some paperwork in the hallway. My friend reassured me that Karen had always been like that and told me not to let it get to me. But I still felt conflicted about how I handled it. Sure, she was being unreasonable and condescending, but maybe I should have just ignored her instead of escalating the situation. Then again, why should I have to put up with being talked to like that? I live in a tiny one-bedroom apartment about 3 blocks from my office, which means I can walk to work when the weather's nice. But I still need my car for groceries, visiting family, weekend trips, and honestly just having the freedom to go wherever I want. My car is a 2012 Honda Civic. Nothing special about it. It's silver, has a small dent on the passenger door from where someone hit it in a parking lot 2 years ago, and the radio sometimes cuts out when it rains. But it's mine, completely paid off, and it's been with me through everything. I bought it during my sophomore year of college after working 2 jobs for an entire summer, one at a local restaurant washing dishes and another doing data entry at night. I lived on instant ramen and peanut butter sandwiches for months to save up for the down payment. That car got me through college, my first job interviews, moving apartments 3 times, and countless road trips. It might not be flashy, but it runs great and I've kept up with all the maintenance. New tires last year, oil changes every 5,000 miles, the works. It's reliable. And in this economy, reliable is everything. My cousin is 23 and just got her driver's license last month. Yeah, 23. She's always been the type to do things on her own timeline, which is fine, but she also has this habit of expecting everyone else to accommodate her choices. She still lives with her parents and works part-time at a clothing store in the mall. Nice girl, but she's always had this entitled streak that comes out when she wants something. Last Tuesday, I was just finishing up work when my phone buzzed with a text from her. She asked me what kind of car I drive. I told her it was a 2012 Honda Civic and asked why she wanted to know. She immediately said it was perfect for her and asked if she could buy it off me. She hadn't even asked how much I wanted for it or anything, just assumed I'd be willing to sell. I told her it wasn't for sale. She kept pushing. She asked if I could just give it to her instead. She said that since I have a job and live downtown, I don't even need a car. Then she said she'd been praying for help and felt like this was God telling her this was the right thing. I actually laughed out loud at this. She thought God told her to ask for my car, like the universe was just waiting for her to get her license so I could hand over my only vehicle. I told her no, I wasn't giving her my car because I needed it. She started guilt-tripping me, saying I was being really selfish. She said she was trying to get her life together and this would help her so much. She claimed I had no idea how hard it was. That's when I got annoyed. I reminded her about working 2 jobs in college, eating nothing but ramen for a year, and saving every penny just to afford that car. She knew all this because she used to complain about how I never had money to go out when we were younger. I told her I worked my ass off for that car and knew exactly how hard it was, which is why I wasn't just giving it away. She left me on read after that. The next evening my mom called. She said she heard I wouldn't help my cousin get a car. I asked what my cousin had told her. Mom said my cousin claimed I was hoarding resources and wouldn't share with family when she really needed help. Hoarding resources? I drive a 10-year-old Civic, not a Ferrari collection. I told my mom that my cousin asked me to give her my car. my only car that I need for work and living my life. Mom suggested maybe I could help her find something affordable. I explained that my cousin didn't ask for help finding a car, she asked for my car for free. I spent 20 minutes explaining the whole situation to my mom, who eventually understood my side. But apparently my cousin had already called my aunt, my uncle, and my grandparents, with her version of events. According to her, I was being selfish and unchristian for not helping family in need. My aunt called me the next day. She said I should reconsider helping my cousin because she was really struggling. I told her I wasn't my cousin's parent, and I wasn't giving her my car. My aunt said it was just a car and I could get another one. I told her that if it was just a car, then my cousin could get her own car too. This went on for 3 days. Different family members calling or texting, all convinced I was being unreasonable. My cousin had painted this picture of me as someone who was rolling in money and just didn't want to help family. Never mind that I live in a studio apartment and shop at discount grocery stores. Finally, I'd had enough. I decided to call a family meeting at my grandparents' house that Sunday. Everyone was going to be there anyway for dinner, so it seemed like the perfect time to set the record straight. Sunday came and sure enough, my cousin had gotten there early to make sure everyone heard her side first. When I walked in, I could feel the tension immediately. My grandma said we needed to talk about this car situation. I agreed that we did. I pulled out my phone and showed them the text conversation. The whole thing. Every message. I told them this was what actually happened. She asked me to give her my car for free because she thinks God told her to ask for it. I watched my cousin's face turn red when everyone read the messages. My cousin said she didn't mean it like that. I asked how she did mean it then. She said she just thought since I lived downtown and walked to work sometimes, I didn't really need it. My uncle asked if she really asked me to give her my car. I confirmed that she didn't just ask. She told the whole family I was hoarding resources when I said no. I pulled up my bank statement on my phone and showed them my monthly expenses. I told them what I make and what I spend, explaining that I'm not hoarding anything and barely saving money each month. The room got quiet. My cousin tried to backtrack, saying she was just asking and didn't mean to cause drama. But the damage was done. Everyone could see the text messages and my financial situation. My grandpa said I worked for that car and nobody should expect me to just give it away. My aunt apologized, saying she didn't realize my cousin had asked me to give it to her for free. My cousin started crying and ran to the bathroom. Part of me felt bad, but mostly I was just relieved that everyone finally understood what had actually happened. When she came back, she tried one more time. She apologized for the misunderstanding and asked if we could work out a payment plan. I asked what her monthly income was. She said about $800. I asked about her monthly expenses since she lives at home. She said maybe $200 for gas and going out. I pointed out that meant she had $600 a month she could save for a car. I told her there was a Honda dealership 20 minutes from here with financing options. She could probably get a decent used car with a small down payment. The room was silent again. It was clear to everyone that she could afford to buy her own car if she actually tried. She just wanted mine because it would be easier. My mom jumped in and suggested we all go to the dealership next weekend to help her look at cars. And that's exactly what we did. The following Saturday, half the family went car shopping with my cousin. She ended up with a 2010 Toyota Corolla that she financed herself. It's actually a pretty nice car, and she seemed genuinely happy with it. She never apologized for the drama she caused, but she did text me a few weeks later asking for advice about car maintenance. I guess that's her way of saying sorry. Either way, I still have my trusty Civic, and she has her own car that she's actually proud of because she earned it herself. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.